All right, welcome to another edition of the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Randy Zelia from backsportspage.com.
I'm Rito Rivera from Level 1 Games in Pompton Plains, New Jersey.
2 weeks in a
Gentlemen
row,
and
Webby's back.
ladies.
Yay,
Exactly. Listen, it's been a little rough for me, and I had the bags under my eyes just to show my war scars. But I am here, and I am back. We're rocking and rolling today. Who do we have? We have the one, the only two-time Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer from UFC and a Hall of Famer from Impact Wrestling. Right? We have the most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock.
I was scared that he was going to put the ankle lock on me. It was very traumatic.
I was very much hoping he would. I wanted to see it done. Come on, man! He wasn't going to do it to me. I'm already crippled.
I was going to say he'll give you a belly back suplex.
Yeah, my back is already broken, so you don't have to do. You look at me funny, and I can't walk. So let's.
I literally had the mental picture. You said that. I think back to WrestleMania 14 and having the rocks or the blood from his mouth.
Yes. Oh my God. In my picture, huh? Thanks. You want to see blood coming out of my lungs. My lungs suck already, and you want blood to come out of them? You hurt me with your words. Listen, we won't take any more of your time. This is Ken Shamrock, man. We got to rush into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy.
Ken Shamrock. All right, welcome back to the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Right now, we are honored and lucky to be joined by a Hall of Famer, a UFC Hall of Famer, Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer, the world's most dangerous man himself, Ken Shamrock, here with us on the Cut. Ken, thanks for taking a few minutes with us today, buddy.
I appreciate you guys having me.
So I got to ask you, because when we were doing some research for this interview, everybody just assumes back from 1997 when you came to the WWE, that was your first little dip into pro wrestling. But we did some research and we saw that back in 1988 you started training, correct?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I started with Buzz Sawyer prior to that, but it wasn't really much of anything other than just beating guys up and taking money. I didn't know. But after I went through that stint for a while, then we went to Mooresville, North Carolina, and we actually got with Nelson Royal. In his program down there, and that's when I really got to learn pro wrestling and start getting in the ring and doing something with it. So I had about 2.5 years of experience prior to going in and being a professional fighter, but I did that for, I don't know, 12, 15 years, something like that, and then went into pro wrestling, back into pro wrestling.
Okay, yeah, because I saw that you had some pro wrestling. You went to Japan,
yeah.
And is that where you got into the MMA, like all the grappling over there?
Well, actually, no. I actually was in Nelson's school of wrestling, and then I jumped over to South Atlantic Pro Wrestling. And Dean Malenko had come up and was doing a territory with me, and he stayed at my house. And so we were driving together, and he showed me the videotape of the UWF back in the old day when it was the hybrid wrestling, and it was a form of I guess a shoot style pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've got the first taste of it and started going over to Japan and doing the UWF. And then, of course, it went into the Fujiwara Gumi and then, of course, Pancrase, into the real fighting with Pancrase. I had one real fight with the Fujiwara Gumi one against Don Naka-Nielsen where it was a challenge. And so that's where I think I really kind of understood where I wanted to go. It was wrestling. It was fun for a while, but then it started getting a little more extreme with UWF and then more extreme. And then finally to where we wanted to figure out what pro wrestling would be like if it was real, which was Pancrase. And that's where I really said, okay, now this is what I want to do.
And I'm so glad you brought up that, because I always talk to Randy about this. I'm like, oh man, you have you ever heard of Pancrase? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So now that you bring it up, I want to get your take on that. You were the first foreign-born champion, right? The king of Pancrase.
Yeah, I was. And I think I was actually the first foreign or gaijin champion in Japan when it came to the mixed martial arts world. It wasn't even here yet in the U.S. I mean, that wasn't even thought of. So I was doing it over in Japan for 2.5 years prior to coming in back here to the United States and then fighting in the UFC. Whereas, Royce Gracie was the only other one. And I think he had like 22 years of experience under his belt. And they've been planning this type event for their whole life. I mean, they've been doing it over in Brazil, and then they came to the U.S. and they were challenging people and coming to their dojo. And Royce and Horian and Hickson and all of them were already trying to do this and to show the world who they were by doing these fights. So a lot of us that went into that first event had no idea what we were going to experience. Even what I did in Japan was nothing compared to stepping into the UFC. So all of us were just kind of blown away at the extreme level of fighting that we were getting into. But for the Gracies, that was a comfortable, and they understood what they were getting into. So they had everybody at an advantage, tremendous advantage.
Yeah, because in the U.S. we didn't see that before. That was something brand new. I remember watching it as a kid, and I saw you guys just throwing fists, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing!" This was before weight classes and everything. So,
or a football kick from the guy on the ground, you just walk up and kick him right in the face.
Yeah,
you're like, really? Wow.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah.
So you were one of the founding fathers in the cage for UFC, and you and Gracie were inducted into the Hall of Fame, the first members of the Hall of Fame. What does it mean to you knowing that you were sort of the one who laid the groundwork for this big conglomerate known as the Ultimate Fighting Championship?
Yeah, I mean, it's a responsibility and an honor. I mean, I did something I love doing. I didn't do it because I, wanted to help other people or I had this thought of being a kind person. It was something I wanted to do, and it was me wanting to be famous. I wanted to be the best. And so I went out and did that. And so to be in that position where I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, one of the first ones along with Royce, then all of a sudden now, even though I was doing everything for me and I was going to train, I was going to get there, now all of a sudden there was a responsibility. I felt like, okay, being in that position and being inducted into the Hall of Fame means that I have a responsibility to be able to carry myself in a manner that is professional and that helps other people want to compete in the UFC and want to continue doing this kind of fighting in the UFC. So then it became almost this thing in my head where it's like now I had a responsibility to keep this thing alive. Hence me coming back and fighting Tito Ortiz at 40 something years old and him being, in his prime, because I felt an obligation because they were dying. And Danny even came to me and said, "Hey man, we're getting killed. We're dying. They're only doing 30,000 buys or something stupid." And Tito was their champion. Problem with Tito was Tito had plenty of ability to sell out arenas, right? But he had nobody coming across from him that would help him sell those tickets. And so he had nobody that would confront him or nobody that would build those tickets. He would go in and just beat guys, and they just didn't know how to sell a fight. When I came in there, I taught them how to sell a fight. And so for me, I think all of that is, I believe, a responsibility. Being inducted into the Hall of Fame and being one of the first ones is to keep my legacy alive and also to keep the UFC alive.
And it's funny too, because as soon as you start talking about promoting in the business, I know Em always rolls his eyes at me when I start trying to talk the behind the scenes and the business side of it and promoting, because that's my wheelhouse. But yeah. I have to ask, because like me, I'm one of those people that don't have as much of a athletic ability as a lot of other people. So it's not you guys just showing up at the cage and saying, "Hey, we're going to have a fight." Can you talk about having to train? How long is a training camp, the regiment, and what's it like to step inside the cage and look across the cage from somebody, knowing that you guys are going to grapple and I don't want to say beat the tar out of each other, but you guys are going to be pretty much what it is, beat the tar out of each other. So the training first, how long is a camp usually?
Well, listen, I think that I have to explain kind of where we were at during this time, because I think nowadays people talk about their training. It's much different than what we did. I mean, we didn't even know who we were going to fight, right? I mean, we could walk in there and there's 3 guys we're going to face. And you didn't know who you were going to face or what kind of background they had or where they came from. And there was just no history. And so when you walk into the fights, you're like, okay, roll the dice. Is he a striker or is he a grappler? Is he roll around on the ground? Is he strike? It was really hard to know all those things. And you're in a tournament. So now when you beat a guy, now you have to think about the next guy, and you don't know what he is either. So it was the wild, wild west. And so the best thing I could explain to you on how we prepared to train was that we just went in and made sure that we were physically in the best shape we could possibly be in. So no matter what happened in the fight, we could make sure we closed it out and be there if it took 15 or it took 30 minutes. That we were in good enough shape to be able to finish the fight. And at the same time, too, understand what bare knuckle punches felt like. So we would roll around and we would let guys get hit with bare knuckle, but it was controlled. But you had to feel it, because getting hit with a bare knuckle, man, it's like the great old world. Well, everybody's tough till you get hit with that first punch, right? I mean, but this isn't a boxing glove, right? This is a fist.
Yeah.
So it's even more real in that sense when you take that, because no one understood what it was to fight like this. So you go in there and you're rolling around, a guy punches you in the face, and all of a sudden you're going, that's not supposed to happen. Like, no, yeah, it is. That's what we're doing now. So we literally went into our events, and that's why the Lions Den tryouts and the Lions Den was so epic, and so many stories told about it, because we did fight and we did go into the dojo and we fought each other to make sure we prepared ourselves for what we were going to be getting into. So when we trained, we punched each other. And maybe not the smartest things in the world, but we didn't have any other boundaries to go by, right? So we just said, well, let's just go do it. And so we would put 3 guys in on you, and a guy would switch in every minute, sometimes every 5 minutes, depending on how much we wanted to push somebody. We go 1 minute goes or 3 minute goes, and it would constantly keep a fresh guy on you, and you would get punched with bare knuckle. And it literally, after a while in the dojo, when we fought, it literally was no big deal for us to get hit. We knew what it felt like. We knew it wasn't that bad and that would be okay. Maybe we get cut, but it's not bad. Like, literally, the other guy would get hurt worse if we were able to make sure they didn't hit us in the nose or the chin. We make them punish them by hitting us in the forehead or the side of the head by moving our head to a position where they would hit us wrong. So we got used to the bare knuckle a lot faster than the rest of them. And that's why we did so well. A lot of people go, well, Lions Den was always going in there, always winning. These guys would come in fresh and beat black belts, 6 months of training. And because bare knuckle was so original and so different that when somebody got hit, they literally lost everything and all their thoughts about what they were doing.
Jesus, I can only imagine that, man.
Wow, my God.
Listen, I don't think I've ever been hit that hard that many times, and within 3 minutes especially. So I can't imagine it. But I wanted to ask you, so during this time you're in UFC, and I think you broke your hand, I believe, right? And you go and you train with Bret Hart. And how was that like? And what did he say to get you into WWF at that time?
No, I think that's not correct. I broke my hand, but I didn't train with Bret Hart then. I trained with Bret Hart after we left UFC. Okay. Then I went to train with Bret to get into pro wrestling, my first match with Van Vader. But when I broke my hand, it was 2 different times. One, when I was supposed to fight Tank Abbott and Brian Johnston, and I hit him several times. Then I had to switch hands and use the other one to finish him because I had spiral fractured my hand. And I think you can still see the bump there. God. Yeah, it's got another knuckle right here. So, but I finished the fight, got the win. And then when I tried to go back out there, I couldn't close my hand. And they told me, hey, don't go in. Of course, I would have gone in. But at the same time, I wasn't stupid either. I wasn't going to force it when they said, listen, squeeze my hand. And when I couldn't squeeze it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be fighting Tank Abbott, so maybe I might need the other hand. So that didn't happen. And it took me a little while to heal up, but I came back. And I remember I did it again when I was in training. My first time I broke it, and that was with Vernon. And that's when I was supposed to go in, and I was supposed to fight, come back and fight again, because after the first one, I lost a horse and I wanted him badly. I was supposed to come back again. And then in training, I broke my hand because I caught a kick. I was parrying a kick, caught my finger, and it broke my hand. So then I had to wait to go back. And hence when coming back and then fighting in the tournament and then winning both my fights, sitting in the main event waiting for Hoist. And then Hoist couldn't continue because he was exhausted, which was another story that pissed me off because everybody's exhausted. Everybody's got an injury when you get to the finals. It's just the way it is with bare knuckle. Yeah. But Hoist has to put himself in, and I think the Gracies were a lot like that too, where if there was a disadvantage for them, they wouldn't fight. They would just say, wait until we feel better. But everybody else in the UFC, in the tournaments, would continue to keep going in the finals no matter what kind of injuries you had. You knew how important it was to make it to the finals, and you weren't going to not go to the finals. But when that happened with Hoist, when he basically said, because Kimbo gave him, Kimbo gave him a tremendous go and exhausted him. Then he basically came into the next round and threw in the towel. And you're thinking to yourself, why do you go into the fight and then throw in the towel when there's somebody that's an alternate that can step into your place and do the fight?
Really?
And yes, he stepped into the second bout knowing that he wasn't going to fight and then threw in the towel, and it allowed this kid from Canada to go into the finals without having to fight a second time.
Oh, wow.
Hence,
wow.
I was already in the finals, won both of my fights, and sitting in the finals, and Hoist goes into his second fight, knowing I've already made it into the finals, throws in the towel so the guy would walk into the finals fresh.
Oh, that's
instead
terrible.
of letting somebody come in and fight that spot to make it into the finals.
Especially if somebody's there.
Yeah.
They are there. That same guy, because I didn't do the finals, I stepped away and said, if Hoist is not in there, I'm not fighting. Because I knew I could beat the guy. I mean, it was no question in my mind. I would destroy him. But I wasn't there for anybody but Hoist.
Yeah.
And I was determined I was going to beat him because I was the best. I had already proved it in Japan. I lost to him in the first one. I wanted this one in the second. There's nobody else that I could fight that would improve what I wanted to do. I was already considered one of the best. Hoist was considered one of the best. We needed to fight. He backed out of the fight. And then I'm supposed to go fight some tomato can in the finals. Yeah. I'm like, this is not what I want. I want Hoist. And hence pushed the single fight, super fight ever, because once I said I wasn't going into the finals, I wanted Hoist. It literally made them rethink the way that tournament form was, because Hoist, because he got tired, didn't want to come into the finals, even though I was injured and hurt too, but I was willing to go into the finals knowing I know he was beat up a little bit too. We were both beat up because we both had two tough fights. He had one, and then he got through a second fight, and I think that fight would have been easier for him rather than two fights that I had. But either way, I was in the finals, and I would have fought him no matter what kind of serious injuries I had. I was there to fight him, and I didn't care what it took. I was going to get him. And then he backs out after this first fight and then throws in the towel and then basically says he was exhausted. And that's one thing that made me angry, is because, when you're in these UFC fights, I don't care who you are, more than likely after fighting 2 bare knuckle fights and sometimes 3, you have injuries. You just have to tough it up.
Wow. So, I had no idea that's how it went down. Because I remember that the UFC did like these tournaments, like you're saying, and then it all, like one day just snapped and it changed. So now I see you the catalyst for that. That's interesting. Yeah,
I made the push for that. Of course, just like with anything else, I don't get credit for a lot of stuff I did first because no, I don't know, maybe I pissed off too many people. but hey, I'm good at that. So whatever. I mean, I think I like my role.
Let me ask you a question. Did you finally get, because I'm not a UFC guy. Randy knows more about the UFC than I do. Did you finally get Royce?
Oh, I did. Yeah, absolutely. Second fight, I beat it. Well.
He did.
He did. I got a picture right there on my wall. That's me and Hoist with our arms around each other, and his face looks like a hamburger. So everybody says, Hoist says, he didn't come to fight. And every time he says it, I pull up this picture and I said, damn, just think if I would have came to fight.
It's hard to transition from that, but like I mentioned before about training with Bret Hart and coming to the WWE, I would love to get your thoughts on training with Bret and also your first appearance at the Manhattan Center on a live. It was one of the first. That was when WWE was making the transition to like the Raw is War type of format. So you were that was the last time before they're switching over to Raw's War in the Manhattan Center with a live rowdy crowd at the same night that they had the ECW invasion. So can you talk about training with Bret and also the debut at the Manhattan Center?
Yeah, I tell you what, training with Bret was probably one of you couldn't have put me with anybody more perfect. It was like, he was no nonsense. I know a lot of people don't like him unless you're from Canada, right? And they think he's stuck up and cocky, and that was his character. People, that's who he is, and he's a heel, and he's a serious guy. And so when they put me with him, I was a little skeptical, but once I got there, man, I was very happy because he's a no-nonsense person, man. And that's kind of me when you're training. It's like, we're here to do something. We're not here to, pity-pat and shake hands and talk about the good old days. We're in here to just get sweaty and get bloody and get sore. And that's what Bret was. And I got in there and we started working, man. He showed me stuff. He taught me how to be me, being in a wrestling ring, told me not to back down from these guys wanting me to turn me into a pro wrestler. He said, don't be a pro wrestler, be you. You're a submission expert. You do your stuff and let them work around you. And so that's what I did. I basically went into pro wrestling and learned from Bret, worked with him for a while. He gave me a great insight of who I needed to be. And that's why I was able to step into those locker rooms with an understanding of, hey, I have to respect every one of these guys, no matter how low they are. They're there, and that they have more experience than I do. And they did, because I'd have been away from this for a long, long time. And I'd not been at this level before. So every one of those guys in the locker room had more experience and were veterans. And I was a rookie, and I had to come in as so. So whenever I work with somebody, I always shook their hand and said, hey, tell me what you want to do. With the understanding of what Bret told me, he's like, shake everybody's hand, ask them what you want them to do. And make sure, even though you're coming to them and you're allowing to put the match together, make sure they don't turn you into a pro wrestler. You don't be doing these hip tosses and these suplexes, some of these whatever laterals. You do belly to bellies and ankle locks and chokes and arm bars, the things that you do. And if they try to change that, just tell them that Vince wants you to be you. Stay with who you are, and that you'll just counter off all the pro wrestling stuff that they do. And he said, and learn to sell, because if you can sell and make these guys look good, the more they're going to want to work for you. And so all these little tips that Bret gave me, along with the hard work in the gym. And I don't care what anybody says, if they dislike him, Bret was a hard worker. Bret worked his ass off in the gym, preparing for these different matches and things of that nature. And I was there to see it. So, and I was a part of it. So that's what I respected about him.
Now, one of the things I noticed, and you were kind of a pioneer, because you came from the UFC into wrestling. Like, I didn't even know that you did wrestling first, right? I was always under the impression as a kid, oh my God, this UFC guy came to the WWF. This is so cool. And now you see that more often. Everybody wants to be the shooter. Everybody wants to be the MMA guy in pro wrestling. But you were the first, man. You didn't have anybody to look at and go, hey, I'm going to imitate some of this. You did your own thing, man. And that total respect for that. Like, did you take any inspiration from anybody else at that time, like for your style? Because it was totally original.
No, there's nobody to take it from. I mean,
exactly,
right? Bret told me straight up, dude, be you. That's why they brought you here. You're the world's most dangerous man. You're the world champion in mixed martial arts and no holds barred. That's your character. That's who you are. Do not go from that. I see too many guys come in here that are boxers and have done well in boxing, or that are power lifters and done well in powerlifting, and they come here and all of a sudden they turn into a pro wrestler. There's 1,000 of them. He says, you have to be you. That way you're much different than everyone else. And so that's what I tried to do all the way through. And there were a couple of times people tried to get me to do certain things that would just be like a straight up pro wrestling match, because they didn't understand how to get out of a submission hold, or that they were uncomfortable with doing those things. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, sure. But then when the match started, I just put them in submission holds anyways.
I will tell you, one of my favorite moments of watching you with WWF, WWE was during that submission match at WrestleMania 13 after the match. And you put Bret in a waistlock and flipped him over. Man, people wanted to see you and Bret at that moment, man. And you go back and look at it now, it was magic. And I was a little disappointed that you guys never really got to have a program on WWE TV because it was there. You know what I mean? The chemistry was there. And like you said, he's giving you all this great advice. You being able to work with him probably would have been magic.
No doubt in my mind, because like I said, I worked with him. I trained with him. He's the one that really taught me how to be who I needed to be in pro wrestling. Gave me a lot of insight. And so there's no question, absolutely no question in my mind, the matches we could have had with submissions and suplexes and belly to bellies and just all this, it would have been incredible. I mean, it would have been one of those matches we could have done for 40 minutes and people would have been on the edge of their seats.
Yeah, dude. I love the fact that you and Vader went at it.
Yeah.
And you were very snug with each other, but it was totally, that's the style I like. And what did you think about that? Like, opposed to everyone else that was wrestling around you, doing, like you say, hip tossing and everything. What was it about those type of matches that really got you excited, that got your blood like pumping?
Well, one, because everybody thought we were killing each other. I mean, and listen, isn't that what it's about? It's
exactly
about you doing something and people literally just going, holy crap, those guys went at it, man. Those guys really beat each other up. And that's what it is, And I know that's Bret and the way he worked and Shawn Michaels and all of them. That is the sweet spot when fans go, holy crap, and so with what I did and with what Bret did and some of the other guys would do, being able to have people say, holy crap, and not have to go through a cage onto a mat or off a cage onto the table and be able to say, holy crap, to us, we're like, dude, if we can get that kind of reaction without having to come off the top of a building, I think we're doing pretty good.
Exactly. Because I'll tell you, as a kid, man, I'm sitting there and I'm watching you guys tearing it into each other. I'm going, God damn, like they're really fighting in the ring. And I'm digging it, man. And from that moment on, I think it's your fault. I'm like so huge on that style where you like nice and snug.
And also, Ken, like you mentioned with Bret, you had the opportunity to work with Owen and help bring the Lions Den match, which they used quite a bit when you were working with WWE. I believe you did with Owen and Steve Blackman. I'm not counting the one with Vince, but counting the one with both of those guys. Can you talk about instituting that style, working with those guys in a Lions Den type of setting?
Yeah, it was the writing was on the wall. Steve was a great martial artist, and his weapons, being able to handle those weapons was tremendous. He was just above everyone, right? And then Owen, he's a lot like Bret, right? The psychology of his matches and how he worked was more legit. And so for us to be able to go in there and have those matches together, I thought it was tremendous. But man, I just felt like we didn't even really scratch the surface. Like there was so much more we could have done. And for whatever reason, I don't know what, but we just never really got in deep with it. And I thought it was a missed opportunity because you see what Goldberg was doing and just playing an MMA guy. Like a guy was destroying everybody. And yet we brought in Stone Cold trying to mimic the same thing. And he was over huge, but his was more like people feeling like, okay, I can sit here and watch this for however long it is and feel like I can tell my boss to go screw himself. There's a different angle there, right? But it was working. But I felt like, man, if they would have just put me with the right guys, and I'm not saying the guys I work with weren't the right guys, but if they were sprinkling me with everybody, like there was no program until I literally worked with The Rock. And then I worked a tag team, with Big Boss Man. But there was really, there was Bret Hart that was like, right in your face. There was so many other guys there that I felt like Steve Blackman, even though he wasn't over, but man, we worked a little bit here and there, but they never really dug in and put a legitimate program together. When they finally put one that was legitimately a program and put it together and worked a long angle with it, which is what we should have done with a lot of different other opportunities, was The Rock. And we've seen how that turned out. It was tremendous, but that was it. There was nothing more than that. It was pretty dry. That was my first opportunity to really get in and work an angle with somebody. And we were both green. We were both cutting off each other, trying to build our characters. And we were, in my opinion, by the time we were done with our program, we were both standing on top of the mountain. When we were right there with everyone.
Yeah, that's 100%. I remember that, man. You made him spit blood.
Yeah. And that's what those guys appreciated that, though, because there's a difference between working and dangerously and hurting somebody and working stiff. Exactly. Right. And a lot of the guys are okay with stiff as long as it's not stiff with they're not feeling safe. And I felt like working with The Rock, he was always comfortable with what I was doing. And I always told him, listen, and sometimes he thought I was nuts, but I always told him, you better bring it or I ain't selling it.
You got to feel it. And was that something that you learned here in the States or in Japan? Because I know it's really big in Japan where they want you to feel everything so that you know how to react to it. Was that something that you took from over there?
No, I think, I did learn a little bit more about, over there, but over there they don't sell either. It's react and then go, right? Yeah. So, but here it was like, I was more me, right? Because I felt like the only way that I could legitimately get somebody over or put somebody over is if I felt it. Like if somebody did something to me and it didn't hurt, I was like, okay, how do I react to this? Because I don't know. As opposed to somebody slamming me through the mat, like just driving me through the mat so I can feel it. And somebody kicking me, like kick me, like I'll be all right. Just kick me in the thick parts of my body. And they hit me with a chair. It's like, hit me, because I don't know how I don't have the ability to fake it. Right. Yeah. And so it was always important to me, the guys that I work with, that I would tell them, say, listen, I'm okay with being easy, however you want me to be. But with me, I want to feel it. So if you throw a punch and it doesn't connect, I'm not selling it.
Yeah, because you don't know how to sell it if you're not feeling it.
Right.
So that I've heard that they do that a lot in the dojo in Japan. That's why I was asking. Was that something you learned over there? But one of the things I wanted to touch on, and I think it was a big accomplishment, you went to TNA back in 2000. What was it? What year was it? It was 2002. Yeah, and you were the inaugural NWA heavyweight champion. Like, what did that mean to you that they entrusted that to you, like right off the bat? Here you go. Let's run with this.
Yeah, I tell you, it was, you don't get those opportunities unless people think highly of you, right? Or they're thinking like, hey, we can use him. And I felt honored because I knew where Jarrett wanted to go. I knew what he was thinking. And I felt like, man, if WWF would have done that, to put me in a position to where Ken Shamrock's legit. This is the world's most dangerous man. He didn't get the title because they gave it to him just to give it to him. He got it because he was the world's most dangerous man. Mm-hmm. And so he put me in that position to be able to carry an angle that they were trying to put together. Unfortunately, with that was that by the time I ended up getting the strap and it was, I don't know, maybe a month later is when I actually signed the deal to fight Tito. I believe I couldn't, but I know there was a fight that I was getting ready to do. And the reason why I had to drop the strap was I wasn't able to be very consistent, but I thought the direction they were going and how they were doing it was getting over tremendously. And it's because they used me as the character I should have been used as in the first place.
Exactly, because there was definitely missed magic. Don't get me wrong. In WWF at the time, there was magic that you made. I lived it. I saw it on TV every time you were on there. But there were matches that should have been made, and for some reason they weren't. And they definitely were missed opportunities. Even back then, as a kid, I knew it.
I just thought like Shawn Michaels. I had a match with him. Bret Hart, mm-hmm. Even the Road Warriors. Like, my goodness, people, the world's most dangerous man against one of the Road Warriors? Come on. Like, these are matches in my mind. I'm just thinking, even though, people work differently, I was good enough to be able to work with anyone, right? And I felt like, man, there was guys like, I had a chance to work with Billy Gunn, who was a tremendous worker. Even Mankind, I got to work with him. And every match that we did, everybody bought into it, but it just didn't go anywhere. It's just like, okay, we did that, now we're doing something else. And it just felt like, wow, you guys, they don't, like, where am I going? And when they finally put me with The Rock and we started a program, they got to see what I could do. But unfortunately, a lot of stuff started happening during that time, even when Bret Hart got screwed over, because I was working with Bret and I was part of that Canada connection. Even though I wasn't from Canada, I was with those guys because Vince put me there. Vince put me in Canada to work with Bret. And so I made those connections with Davey Boy and Owen and Anvil and Bret. And so these were my guys, and because Vince put me there. And then when that screw job happened, then all of a sudden now I'm like, okay, now what? Like, I mean, am I supposed to hate Bret now? I can't do that. The guy helped me. Like, now I'm stuck here, like going, Vince is pissed off. And Bret's pissed off. And it's like, Vince is my boss. Bret's my friend and my boy, because he put me where I'm at to get me and understand what I was doing. I owe him. And here I was stuck, right? And it was a bad situation. And that was like, me and The Rock had done something. And he was moving up. And I felt like I could have moved up after him and put some tremendous matches on between Bret Hart, Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, Ken Shamrock, and The Rock. And Undertaker sprinkled in there, and Kane, and, you name it. Just so much that we could have done, but I just never touched it, never touched the belt.
Yeah, because you were definitely up there, man.
And that was actually one of our questions was that ever considered? But it's funny you mentioned that too, because every single time, whether it was from Bruce Pritchard or any of these other podcasts, or The Undertaker has done a lot of interviews lately too, when they discuss what happened in Montreal, they always say Ken Shamrock asked to stay in that room, and Undertaker said, as the story goes, they asked you no, or they told you no, but you wanted to be in that room after that match.
Yeah, I did, because Bret asked me, he said, hey, don't leave. And I mean, listen, I was stuck, right? I was stuck. I wasn't going to go against Vince. Vince it was his company. But yet Bret asked me to stay. So how would that hurt if I stayed? Like, I'm not going to jump in. I mean, Bret's going to handle himself. It's not like I got to jump in and help him. Vince is not going to hurt Bret. It's like, so I didn't understand, just because I wanted to stay, what that meant. What did they think we were going to do? Have a gang fight? I mean, it just didn't. It didn't make sense. Yeah, Vince put me there. Yeah. I got friends with these guys. These guys, I came from there and the training from there. These guys put me where I needed to be in the WWF, so I became friends with them. And now this thing happened, and Bret goes, hey, don't leave, along with Davey Boy and Anvil and all the other ones. And we're like, okay, we'll support you, but not against Vince, just to support him. That's the idea, right? None of us are going to beat up Vince. None of us are going to get into a gang fight, right? I mean, just between Vince and Bret. And because we wanted to stay to support Bret, and whatever was going to happen after that, like, he could have been fired, right? Or he could have been upset after that, right? And we could have been there to help him. That's all it was. It had nothing to do with us trying to challenge the power and take over the world.
Yeah. Well, I want to fast forward to your the latest run you made with Impact. Can you talk about what it was like being the veteran in the locker room with a lot of these young, talented kids that are there now? Did they come to you for advice? How was that experience being back with Impact?
Yeah, first of all, I came in to do a one-off, and that was with Moose. I had done some stuff, in some other organizations overseas. I was very happy to be in Australia with, the wrestling program down there. And I got an opportunity because, Brian Cage had reached out. We were kind of friends anyways. We were just back and forth, and said I was going to break the machine. And, he came back. And, of course, then Scott D'Amore came in and said, hey, how'd you like to come out to Vegas? We're going to be down here. And, of course, I'm in Nevada. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to come down there. And so I said, but you better tell that Moose, man, I'm going to clip his legs, So it got into this thing. And so then instead of me going against Brian Cage, because Moose jumped in and started chiming, and I started saying stuff to him. And then, but it originally started with me and Brian, and me and Brian were supposed to have this match, I thought. Well, when I get down there, they're saying, hey, we want you to go against Moose. And I was like, oh, whatever you need, man. And I thought that's what it was. I thought Brian was doing that for him, just like I did with Mike Tyson. I lured Mike Tyson, and I was the first one to challenge him and call him all kinds of names. And then he got there, and everybody else wrestled him except me, right? And I thought that's what's happening with Brian, right? It was like, okay, you're supposed to just bring me in, and then they're going to have him wrestle with other guys that are over, right? And because you look at Mike Tyson, I said he was a rapist and all these other things.
I forgot about that.
I literally on national TV saying I challenged Mike Tyson to a fight, and of course then he came into the organization, and of course they put him with Shawn Michaels and other people, which that was smart, right? I wasn't over like they were. But even if you think about that, what would have been like if me and Mike Tyson would have had a match? World's most dangerous man against the world's baddest man.
Yeah.
Well, that never happened, and we were in the same house, and so just stuff like that. But being back with Impact and being challenged by Cage and then being pushed off on Moose, which was a great match. I enjoyed working with him. Then getting into a contract with him. Like they say, hey, because I think people thought I would come in and look the way most people do when they're 50-something years old, and they were just going to do a little start thing, and then I was done. But then when I had my matches and diving over the top rope, they're like, hey, how'd you like to have a year contract? And I was like, sure. Did my year contract, had a great time. And the great thing is because I had already been down the road and I had fun, and I was excited to be there. Just to be around the young guys and be able to just talk with them and have fun with them. And some guys would ask me certain things and I would talk to them, but really these guys are professionals, man. They already have an idea where they're going and what they're doing. They understand the wrestling, so it's not like somebody like me is going to come in there and teach them anything other than, some things that they may be asking me, hey, what did you think of this? Or watch my match. And I would do stuff like that. But these guys are intelligent and they understand what they're doing. And it was really good to be in that group of people because it felt like the Attitude Era. It felt like this is going to be special. And they're still going strong, man. And listen, nothing happened between me and Impact, right? These are things that happened there that on a mutual respect of how things are supposed to happen. And I have nothing but respect for everyone in Impact, all the wrestlers there, even the guys they're bringing in. And I have all the respect in the world for the management there and what they're able to do.
So, Randy, you're on mute.
I was going to say that's awesome. I know Em was ready to go. My last thing with you, Ken, is not more of a question, but more of just the thank you because the Attitude Era was such a very big part of all of our lives as far as wrestling fans, and your contributions, I know from a fan perspective, is not overshadowed. We know what you did. I was in the arena when you fought the Bulldog in New Jersey for SummerSlam, and the crowd wanted more. What I mean? So I just want you to know that we us here especially we support you, and we're definitely behind you with all your future projects.
Yeah. Well, I know this, man. I feel like even though I'm 57 right now, I feel like I can still go. I feel like I've got so much energy, and but I'm doing treatments with BioAccelerator and other cult medical things that are helping my body stay young. And I'm under a doctor's care constantly to try to improve my health. Like I want to keep going until I can't go no more. And so I put myself in the best position with diets and food and nutrition and all these things that can help me be able to stay young. And I put myself in that position and only because I believe that in the world that we live in, anything is possible. I still, to this day, believe that there's an opportunity for me to kick the crap out of Kurt Angle. I believe that. I believe that because now he's getting in shape, right? And so he's looking tremendous. And I'm thinking, okay, man, let's set these AIDS crap aside, man. Let's get, if we are capable of doing it, let's go do it. We'll have an ankle lock match, see who the greatest is.
Yes.
And then there's Brock Lesnar, right? That guy's always in tremendous shape. He's a beast. I think, there's an opportunity for me to beat the hell out of him. And I'm game. I'm ready for it, And so I love the way that things are and the opportunities the way that these, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like guys are taking their health and their opportunities as they get older more seriously to be able to compete longer.
Yeah, because listen, I'm holding my breath to see you come back. I know you still have some unfinished business and Impact, Sammy Callahan. But I wanted to transition away from wrestling for a moment because we're winding down, and I think we've taken so much of your time, and we're grateful for it. I wanted to talk about this charity event that you did recently. You went golfing, and the funds were for battered women and children. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was actually, in the early days, I was in Lodi, California, and I was training a lot of the fighters down there. I ended up, through one of my fighters, had met Junior. I think at the time he was probably in his 20s or something like that. He invited us to go to some of the Gatorade games, and we get on the sideline. And so we became friends. And during that time that we were friends, I remember one time we were supposed to meet up with him and he didn't show up. And so we're trying to get a hold of him. And then, of course, he ended up calling us back and saying, hey, man, I'm not going to see you guys for a little bit. Got family issues. His sister got killed. Freddie's daughter had gotten killed. And so this was something that anybody going through it's brutal. So, but instead of falling down on the knees and surrendering, Freddie and Angela went out and started something to help prevent these type of things from happening. And so they started putting together this golf celebrity tournament where they bring in Raiders and Denver players and Hall of Famers that are played in the NFL. And they put together this charity golf tournament. And then people would come in and they would donate money for this charity to be able to help these people that were in need or had already been in trouble or been beaten or gone through some stress. And so I got involved in it many, many years ago and started playing, because I felt like this was such a great cause to be able to help these kinds of things not to happen, and be able to have those different types of warnings and opportunities to track people through their phones, and all these other different things to help maybe even younger girls who are just starting out into the world. If they get into trouble, to be able to find them when you need to find them. Or if they make a mistake or something and they're able to get themselves out of that, because then you can find them through the tracking of phones and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of other stuff that they're doing that's just helping battered women and children. And to me, I thought, when I first got into it, it was something that I was going to continue to do as long as I can. So I do it, and I've done it a lot and played in this thing a lot. And this is the first time we're actually playing in it where we shot 13 under, which is decent. So I thought we were respectable. So most of the time we usually shot like 8 or 9 under, and people are shooting 20, 22 under. So this time I think it was a really hard course, and I think the best score, and I'm not sure, but I think it was like 14 or 15 under, and we shot 13 under. So we did really well.
Awesome. That's so great to hear, man. And I love to hear that you're involved in that. And one last thing before we let you go, because I wanted to touch on your podcast. You have a podcast, World's Most Dangerous Podcast, available on all platforms. And you talk about your story and the things that you've gone through. So I just wanted to see if you want to promote that a little bit and tell us a little bit about that before we let you go.
Yeah, just like with working with Freddie and Angela on their charity golf thing for women and children is also too. I came from a group home, and I was abused as a kid also, and went through some of the same traumas, and into group homes. And then of course my father owned the group home, and I was adopted. So I was separated from my brothers, my family. I had my mother and father, which wasn't much of a mother and father. So I was separated early. So I know the struggles, and I know the pain and the suffering that happens. And then as you get older too, then there's also, you start thinking about, okay, well, who am I? Where does my roots really go? So there's a lot of stuff like that. So I reach out and try to talk about these things on my podcast to maybe even help other people through struggles that they're going through. And also talk about my career, different stories in the locker room and out of the locker room and personal issues I've gone through, street fights that I've had, and fun stuff. Some we can just fun it and just joke around and have fun at. But a lot of this too is for me to have the ability and all the stuff that I do, even with my ValorBK.com, if you want to check out the bare knuckle stuff that we're doing, and we're going to be launching really soon. But everything that I do is so that I'm in a position to help other people that are struggling in life. That is the honest God truth. I'm not doing this like I did in the beginning where I'm furthering myself as a champion. I'm literally in a point now in my career, I've done everything, right? So now it's about building myself into a position to where I can actually reach out and help other people and achieve some of the goals that they want and be able to help them get out of bad situations.
Listen, much respect to you, man.
Definitely.
You don't like your star just got that much bigger in my eyes, man. And listen, we don't want to take any more of your time. We're respectful and super appreciative. Thank you so much for coming on with us and sharing some of the stories and just telling us everything that you're up to at the moment.
Cool. I appreciate that. But listen, man, go to ValorBK.com. We're going to be making an announcement within a week. So follow me on ValorBK.com because our next Valor bare knuckle event will be announced.
All right. So everybody, you hear that? Go out and follow. Say it again.
ValorBK.com. ValorBK.com.
All right.
And also go to KenShamrock.com and also visit his shop where he has got T-shirts, autograph items. Go to visit KenShamrock.com right now. Gotta throw that in there.
Don't forget that because that's where all the fun stuff is, right?
Exactly. I got to get myself a Ken Shamrock shirt. This is what we do with all of our guests. We buy their merch and we show it off afterwards. So that's a little bit more of a thank you.
Yeah, seriously, go on. We got a lot of stuff to choose from, man. So, you got to get one so that way you're legitimately with the world's most dangerous man.
Ken, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, buddy.
I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was Ken Shamrock, the world's most dangerous man, joining us here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. And it was like one of those things again where we probably could have had him on for another 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was. Listen, he's a great dude. Maybe he'll come on again. We'll be able to do maybe a part 2 with him at a later point. But you know what, though? He's a great dude. It was a pleasure to have him on.
Listen, I'll be honest, man. That gave me goosebumps, man. I have the hair on my neck is standing up. This is Ken Shamrock from the early days of the UFC, from Pancrase. I always tell Randy, yo, Pancrase, you know who Minoru Suzuki is? And he always looks at me like I got 3 heads. So it was great to hear him actually talk about it. And, dude, WWF, man, when I was a teenager, watching him belly to belly everybody and put the ankle lock, and you can tell he was really torquing that ankle. I wanted to talk to him about that, but we didn't have enough time. But listen, that was so freaking cool. See, I want to curse, but I can't, so I'm being good today.
Well, and listen, not only Ken Shamrock, but all of our great interviews are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, of course, iHeartRadio, and give us a little subscribe on YouTube and follow the shows. You'll get notifications when you subscribe to all of our podcasting distribution networks there. Every single time there's a new episode, we post something, you got it. And it's going to be right there. Also, we are on social media. You can follow The Cut on these locations.
Yeah, The Cut PW Podcast on Instagram, Cut Wrestling BSP on that's Twitter, and Facebook, The Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Now, again, please show us some love, share the stuff, get your friends talking about it, man. We love whatever attention you give us. We're all about it. So listen.
And also give us some 5-star reviews on the audio platforms. We really appreciate it. Shout out to our producer Andrew Fiume, who makes us look as good as we can be.
And sound great.
Yes, it makes us sound very, very good. And you know what, Em? I can get used to having you back here.
Oh, don't get too used to it, man. I might have to do some more overtime. You never know.
Yeah, listen, you never know. Keep checking out the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast for new episodes. But until then, I'm Randy Zelia.
I'm Marito Rivera, Level 1 Games.
And we'll see you next time on The Cut.